Hello, good morning to you all out there. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I am Chamberlain. So,
well, I hope you had a great weekend. It was all rain here most of the weekend. Quite cool, not so bad. I think Saturday was quite okay. Yes, indeed.
Hope today is too.
It will be. I think you need to have that faith. So good morning to you and welcome to the program. I'm Maokwe Ogunyusi.
You know, I see where all of the rain meant for Lagos went. It's okay. I think we'll recoup this week. Welcome to Lagos. I'm Kayode Okikere.
And I'm Ayomakinde. Good morning and welcome. You know, we couldn't ask for anything less, guys, other than a peaceful and a comfy environment all year round. And what else could we have hoped for, Kayode, in the southeast? I mean, glad to know that the conversations have started, but ensuring not just that we initiate peace moves in the southeast, but to also sustain it. That's something desirable, but that sustenance key is what I think is a matter to be considered.
Oh, indeed. And it was good to see the Chief of Naval Staff actually visiting the southeast states. He was in Anambra, where he spoke with Governor Chukwuma Soludo. And two things actually stuck out for me. First, we understand that there are flyers being circulated around southeast states now saying that the sit-at-home has ended. So, I mean, that's some cheery angle to the story. But when he visited, two things, just popped up for me. One was a state of the infrastructure of the Navy, particularly where he visited. I mean, you could see the building has been eroded, lots of challenges, really. I mean, look at that. So imagine having to work in this kind of environment. And he said that, well, he's glad that, yes, there are those challenges, but it has not significantly impacted on the work of the Navy, extension security agencies. But these things have a way of just affecting, is it morale? Is it even your operations, whether you like it or not? And I think it's important to pay attention because, I mean, there's this saying where I'm from that it's what the bird eats that the bird will fly with. So if you do not invest as much, particularly in these, well, I say soft areas, but they actually mean a lot, then, I mean, it will be asking for too much from the security agencies when it's time for them to respond. So that's one. Two is the fact that he then met with Governor Chukwuma Soludo, and then there was that talk again about, marginalization and how the appointment of a Chief of Naval Staff may have just
balance of sorts?
Of sorts, because this is something that has been clamored for time and again, and it was good to see a son of the soil, in some sense, visiting home, and I think that's also important for security. And I need to make this point because we've talked about the community policing, state policing, having security domiciled, having your security agencies look like you, people you can relate with. It does a lot. So what would happen to that conversation about state police? In fact, community policing as well, because that's where intelligence gathering starts or stops. Well, the vice president, on behalf of the president, had said over the weekend that, yeah, they're trying to look at the intelligence gathering capabilities of security agencies. But I tell you, it starts from having someone you can relate with, someone you can trust around you, that you can pass information to, and you know that this person will not rat me out. I think that is really important. So, well, it is good for the Southeast that we're beginning to see activities on different fronts, but we need to also talk about sustainability, which is this community state police.
Which is one thing that I have always clamored for. I mean, last week Maokwe was raising issues. Where is Ibubiago? For instance,
well, the court has decided on that one.
So does that mean that those neighborhood community security apparatus aren't functional, or something? For me, Kayode, and I've clamored for this forever. Southeasterners are highly industrious people. They are. I mean, we don't need to talk much about their capability to not just raise economic, empowerment for themselves, but also raise economic practitioners, participants. I mean, they train their own. In fact, the apprenticeship model that's ascribed to the Southeast is now something that businesses, international businesses, are discussing. So that is something for us to take a good look at. That's on the one hand. On the other hand is how do we now begin to restore the economic prowess of that southeast? All the things that could have happened that have been staved off as a result, not just of this sit at home, but as a result of general insecurity over the years. Can we now begin to reverse the trend and ensure that our people are proud to go home and are not afraid that they could be attacked or kidnapped? Guys?
Well said, guys. I mean, that's why we always reiterate that look, no matter the odds, the governance of the South is the buck stops at their table. So they have got to ensure that all things about security, they get it right. Either jointly, severally, whichever way, reach out to any security hierarchy, apparatus whatsoever, trust other people. They all need to ensure that that is done, because look, there can be no excuses really. Yes, they've got some challenges, so it's up to them to get a lot of those things right, because if they don't, I mean, last time out we were making an example of football over last week, where and I think we'll tend to see these kind of things almost across board now for elected positions. When it's time for campaign, contestations, you see all manner of promises. And then they get there, then you begin to see, oh, this is because of this. Look, it's too early on a week, the Monday morning, to begin to accept whatever excuse that they churn out at the people now. I don't think it will cut it. I just think, look, fold your sleeves, pick up the gauntlet, and address those issues. If you feel strongly about it, if we need to change the laws here, by all means, let's bring it all forward, because that is what we need to do to ensure that things go right. And some of the thing that caught my interest over the weekend was that letter that was circulating, ascribed to the CJN, sitting powers of appointing judges. It didn't matter seniority or not, and so. But I think interestingly, some of the dailies are also picking up on that one here today. So we'll get some response. As a matter of fact, we'll dive into the dailies, and starting off with Vanguard newspaper regarding that matter. But above all, the lead story on the front page of Vanguard, as we start with the papers here today, has got to do with us, Nigeria. So look at that coup. We struck to avert threat against Nigeria. Niger, that's General Chiani. Okay, so I know that there are several questions concerning all of this. There always will be, anyways, but let me see if the writers will help out in any way. It says, coup well intended. I don't know if I've ever heard any coup say that it wasn't well intended. I don't know. I'm not sure I've heard in my entire life if they say it wasn't well intended.
I'm trying to remember. I think there is an author who actually did try to put together all the coup speeches.
Nigeria?
Yes, in Nigeria. All the speeches that were given right after a coup by the junta leaders. And you have to ask yourself whether those people were able to achieve what it was that they set out to do at the beginning of their... Because oftentimes when these coups happen, never mind Chamberlain, people always rejoice. There's always plenty of happiness. And suddenly, 6 months down the road, it will happen, and that's not exactly what they wanted. You know, yeah. So sometimes we really need to be very careful how we're sweet-talked by leaders who say they mean well, but at the end of the day, have not done the right thing by even getting into office, and eventually, because what a military dictatorship is about is absolute power, and we've been told that absolute power corrupts absolutely. So,
and I think it was benevolent dictatorship was used in the context and describing Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore. And you thought, of course, several people will argue, saying, what do you mean? They should never be used in the same breath. Benevolent dictatorship. Dictatorship is never been over. Look, all of those.
Yeah, but he was he a military leader? I don't remember that Lee Kuan Yew was a military.
No, I'm using the word
leader.
When you use the word dictatorship. That's what. When you have coups like that, democratic rights usually take the back seat.
Indeed.
And so when that does happen, that term dictatorship is elevated. Because look, when you talk about military, what else do you expect? They were not trying to ensure democracy. No, that's not the primary responsibility of any military across the world. So, in that context, probably. But back home here, you get to hear most of those coup leaders those days. Oh no, there's corruption. Things are not going on right. Economy has tanked, and that's what the narrative among several coup leaders in this country. And look at where we are today. So, history. We need to do a lot about that, really. History, understanding our history, so that we know how to navigate and proceed moving forward if we need to make sense of our future, I might add. And then more of the writers here says, explains why they didn't see Tinubu's delegation led by General Abdul Salami. Now, was it Tinubu's delegation or ECOWAS' delegation? Because they use that interchangeably. Because now, several narratives we see here and there trying to turn their attention to Nigeria, but they need to, because even look at the headline here, we struck to avoid threat against Nigeria. So, but this is an ECOWAS thing now. Yes, this may be his own perspective, but big buts.
Well, when you look at the circumstances under which he's speaking, he was visited by Nigerian Islamic clerics. So I think it's understandable why he will try to justify, his taking over power when he's speaking to Nigerian clerics. In other words, it's also in your own interest. That's why we struck. I think that the circumstances under which he was, or the group of people he was addressing will also inform the words that he'll use. I mean, there has to be a purpose. He has to, make them feel good or make them feel okay.
Does that sound like politics?
The question is...
Or politics?
The question is, should we buy it? Should we buy it? Yes, indeed. Niger borders the whole of our north, from the east to the west, from northeast to the northwest. They sit directly on top of our northern states, and we can understand the apprehension of the states that directly border Niger, and the efforts that they too have made to, make sure that dialogue is really, brought to the fore. But then, should we buy this? That's a big question.
We'll
should
see.
we buy this?
We'll see as we progress. But that's not all with the riders. Well, you also mentioned this one. OK's dialogue as he meets Nigerian Islamic clerics. Fight corruption, insecurity, not Niger Republic. Catholic bishops tell FG. It's not FG, guys. We're going to fight Niger Republic. We need to keep reiterating all of that. It's an ECOWAS decision. Even if it was to happen, it won't be Nigerian troops. It will not go in as Nigerian troops. So I expect people to know better. Prioritize dialogue, diplomacy. Obi urges FG ECOWAS. Okay, there you go. That's a better context. So, because if you don't speak to all of the persons involved, chances are that you might get what you call waste exposure. Okay, here's that part that I spoke about. NJC denies ceding powers on judges' appointment, promotions to governors. That letter did get some, it made the rounds, over the weekend, where it was purported to have been signed by the CJN saying the governors will decide seniority. It doesn't matter if you joined in 1984 or 1992. So now we're speaking to this. So that's the importance of them clarifying things ahead of time. Fuel price hike looms as landing cost rises by 37.4%. So if you thought 617 naira per litre was the height of it, you thought wrong. Because now, who knows? Tomorrow Lagos might be buying for 617. I don't think they're buying for 617 at the moment. So there you go. I think they're enjoying the benefit of the port. It lands just behind us here, so you don't need to factor in all those transportation costs and everything. But Who knows?
So for those of us here, you are on your own. And those further up north, you are on your own. Well, if you can, just buy what you can today. You know, I intend to buy a little today. But really,
today, a little tomorrow.
A little today, a little tomorrow. You just have to see how you can get around. Well, look at what you have on the front page of Daily Trust. They're also focusing on the ECOWAS matter. ECOWAS-Niger's junta begin talks soon. Military rulers accept dialogue. Ulamas to brief Tinubu today. We sacked Bazoum to save Nigeria. I like how they attribute this. Coups, that's what Daily Trust says. That's what the coups say. Why we shunned Abdulsalami delegation, so that story is also on the front page of Daily Trust. Protest in Katsina for Bazoum's release. Envoy seeks U.S. help. Stories on page 4 of the paper. You also see the stories here. Kano halts fee increment by private schools. Okay, that's a bit odd. That's if it's supposed to be a free market, unless, of course, the Kano state government intends to subsidize the private schools. She intends to give them some money, you know, to make up whatever costs, you know, they're trying to. But I think it's supposed to be a free market. If fees go up and public schools are good,
federal government colleges.
You know, federal government. No, even primary schools. Don't forget that, you know, this primary school, even though it's under the purview of the local government, we know that state governments have taken over largely in many instances. So rather than halting private schools, you know, who are running their own private business, you can regulate it as much as possible, but you can't halt fee increments looking at the circumstances, unless, of course, you have a way of mitigating it. And then you work on a government-owned school so that people do not have to, who cannot afford whatever fees they're charging there, will take their children to government schools. You know, it's supposed to be a, anyway. What do I know? Page 23, let me not get ahead of myself. I mean, that's what they call running away with the headline, right? So I'll advise you don't do that. Pick up a copy of Daily Trust and find out what that is about. Gombe-Bauchi Road Bridge collapses after downpour. Well, infrastructure that was not solidly built will certainly give way under this. This is the season for the true test of real infrastructure. Overhead tank collapses, kills teacher in Edo. It's also right there on page 16 of the paper. And look at what we've always emphasized on this program, Chamberlain, how road crashes, safety issues, you know, seem to be taking more lives than matters of security. Safety we can control. You know, security, some people will say, okay, with our security agencies, we need to do so much more. But safety is within our purview. If we actually do invest quite a bit in education, there is so much that can be done with regards to safety. Look at that. Road crashes claim 4,387 lives in 6 months. It's half a year. Up to almost 5,000 people have lost their lives owing to accidents, things that could be avoided. We need to do a lot more. We need to do a lot more as a country, as a government, and as people. We need to do so much more. On page 6 is where you see the story there, and diversion of diaspora remittances contributing to Naira crash. That's according to the central bank. I'm going to have to leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Take a look at the Guardian newspaper. Have you ever heard of the Fiscal Irresponsibility Act? Well, yeah, I'm sure you're wondering, when did that come up? But that's how the Guardian leads this morning. CBN's Fiscal Irresponsibility Act. Investigator probes CBN staff, consultants, NIBs, NSPMC. Yeah, that's the big story. Well, it's been making the rounds from early in the weekend. And of course, building up, and clearly this is a big one. It's a very, very big one. Now, NIBS is the Interbank Settlement Service. NSPMC is the Security Printing and Minting. So you're just wondering what's going on, really?
You know, a number of people, particularly concerning the Fiscal Responsibility Act, a number of people have been asking how come the CBN was able to overshoot its borrowings to the federal government above 5% without the law being amended. You know, that's perhaps part of what this whole conversation is about. So if the investigator is asking questions from the CBN staff, I'm wondering what level of the staff they are. Expectedly they will be at the top echelon, but hey, I guess we wait.
I mean, lots of things are happening, and I think, as Pastor Bakari said, yes, Nigerians should not be made scapegoats, but also these things should be done without, politics. It should be done the right way, objectively. So even if it would affect the current government, even if it would indict the current government or members of the government, yes, I know that might be tough to ask for, but that should take its full course, and the what's it called now? The repercussions should, of course, follow. So it's a big one. Investigator probes CBN staff, consultants, NIBS, NSPMC. And you see those pictures on the front page telling the story all the more. Let me give you this one, might shock you. How fuel subsidy removal impedes justice administration. Yeah, you didn't see that coming, right? But of course, it's impeded a lot of things. But justice administration, who would have thought? Well, more details on the inside pages as well. And you see this one, it's in green. How 66 days of APC plunged Nigeria into further darkness by Labour Party. So yeah, that might interest you. Yeah, so is it darkness in terms of power? Is it more than that? Well, that's why you have to pick up a copy of the Guardian newspaper this morning. Well, let's leave it there.
Well, perhaps there must be an agreement on, and even perhaps within the party, if one could say, but then we'll get to that. The Daily Independent this morning has this on its front page. CBN Naira float may crash in a short time. Experts warn, say, Nigeria not ripe to operate currency float. When are we ever ripe for anything, really? Very, very difficult terrain, if you ask me. Devaluation affecting productivity and manufacturing. Find the details on the inside pages, page 24 or page 29, really, to be precise. Right above the nameplate, perhaps kind of follow up to that story in green on the front page of The Guardian. Tinubu has plunged Nigeria into chaos. Guess who? Bakari. Yeah. That's the same reference that you made. That's the detail. The details on the front page continues on the inside pages. And quite a number of other issues on the front page, including this one right under the picture on the front page. Aviation College, outrage over missing 4.750 billion 2 trainee helicopters. Missing. Why is it in commas, inverted commas?
As in the same large helicopters, really large helicopters are missing?
How can you just be missing, right? Senator queries rector, petitions National Assembly. Helicopters were duly auctioned.
Okay.
Rector claims. So where is the money? Anyway, the details you'll find on the inside pages. That's the Daily Independent this morning.
The graph, kill corruption, not Nigerians. Bakari tells Tinubu. Yeah, you remember this banner, this word, featured some years ago during that Save Nigeria protest. So same narrative too when, as we started out talking about the several coup leaders say there's corruption, this, and it was a sing-song. Last government, don't forget that, it was one of the tripods. They were going to fight corruption, but today, you can make of that what you will. Whether how successful or otherwise that turned out, I think it will always be a sing-song. It will always be a thing. If we don't have, I guess we'll wait and see, because opening that chapter, it's a whole lot of things to be done in that regard. Look at the right. It says, Palliatives, no cure for citizens' sufferings. States Tinubu lacks morality to provide ECOWAS leadership. warns against scapegoating Emefiele, accuses president of rewarding bad behavior with ministerial appointments. You know, because
he had quite a lot to say yesterday, because he was talking about how the EFCC chairman was probing the former governor of Zamfara, Said Matawale, and the EFCC chairman who was doing the probe is currently in detention, and Matawale, who was under the probe, has been confirmed as a minister. So,
you know,
quite a lot he had to say yesterday.
You know, the thing about this is that perception is people's reality. So now, clearly, I mean, years on this job, you all will know that there are several other factors that played out, but this is the part that people see. So the people make their decisions based on what they know. And so, because we hear all sorts of things behind the scenes, why, but it is what it is to people. So it's up to the government then to find a way to explain to people how they think if they have taken the best decision, because of course that's what they expect, so that's what they try to do when doing all of those things. So if they can't communicate that to the people, then you have question marks. If they have to convince people about that, who knows? So is it possible they revisit the probe? It will be challenging, because if he's been screened, if he's been passed, then the given portfolio, it's going to be embarrassing for the government to say, oh, no, we found a case against you, so step aside. Look, we don't know if all of those have been factored in, because look, politicians always tell us, we don't think like you guys. You guys think different. No, this is not how we do this politics. But that's what is out there at the moment, so they need to do that.
Well, if you missed that sermon yesterday, you might want to watch it on our website. Got the full 1 hour for you.
There you go. And then at the bottom strip here, 10th House Committees. Ibori takes over daughter's role as NDDC's chair.
Okay.
Okay, but that takes over as in parentheses, so...
Is it doing it via proxy?
Okay, well, I think they may have a lot on the paper, because if you're asking questions about substantiating, just for you to note that. Summons commission's top shots for briefing. Maybe this is why. And then briefing to is in parentheses here. Reps lobby ex-Delta governor for inclusion in committee. Contractors besiege Abuja, Lagos, Warri residences. Wow, 3 locations there, guys.
Well, no surprises. Don't forget that the former Delta State governor was also in company of the other governors, the 99 sects, we're told, who, or sects, rather, sects, not sects. They're not a religious group. Sects who visited the president in the villa, and you know, a group. Remember that there was a group here. They started right here in our studios. I'm trying to remember their name now.
Class of 99 or what?
No. There was another group, CLO. Yes, which had
big holes in that visit.
Big holes in that visit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they had very strong objection to some of the people in that group or in that set who visited the president in the villa. So no surprises here. Perhaps what it is that they're complaining about, it's coming to fruition. This is precisely what they were afraid of. So you might want to look on the page of New Telegraph to get details. What did you say the headline read again?
10th House Committee, Ibori takes over daughter's role as NDDC's chair. So just go ahead and see
House
that
committee,
one.
That's a House Committee. She's an elected representative. She wasn't appointed, but then, I mean, it is what it is.
And, well, the rest is, there's a lot of politics too. They talk about Ogun APC may implode over ministerial nominations. So there's still a lot of... Has there ever been any time like this kind of things happen? You don't find all this contestation saying, no, this... And then at the end of the day, just want results. People will speak up if they don't get it. So that's New Telegraph this morning.
Well, take a look at this. The Abuja Inquirer, lest we forget, I mean, really wanted to take one of the consequences of the border closure affecting our people. But let's take a look at what is happening right here in the FCT and the stories that are important to us. Security tops agenda as ministers get portfolios. Criminals on free rein in FCTA offices. So you find details on page 3 of the paper. Is it because there's no minister, there's no substantive minister there? Is that why the permanent secretary cannot take charge? Criminals on free rein in FCTA offices. So people are just going in there and robbing and getting out in the FCTA office. Okay, you might want to read details on page 3. As I said, don't run away with the headlines. You also see this here, Emefiele, Bawa, Tunde Bakare slams Emilok on politics. Nigerians tackle pastor. It's on page 3 of the paper. So not one person reserves rights of criticism anymore. Page 3 is where you find details. Yes, indeed. You criticize and other people reserve the right to criticize you. You have a number of other stories right there. Trembling, this is something we mustn't, let slip. I really do not want to give voice to it, but it could be a sign of something that needs to be addressed very quickly. Coalition wants native to head FCTA. You laughed, right? It does sound laughable, but this is how agitation
people want
starts.
what they want. I know.
Yeah, this is how they start. So we need to start having those. We mustn't run away from those types of conversations. We must address them headlong. If we have said that this is what the FCT is about, and they've made a very strong case. FCT is like a state, etc., etc. Appoint a minister. Okay, so you appoint a minister, but let us remember that ministers that are appointed from the FCT or from any other state do not necessarily head ministries that are in charge of their states. So when you now start to say, oh, the one that is appointed from our state must, be in charge of the FCTA, it's a problem. It's a very big problem. So you might want to read page 15 to get what this agitation is about and whether these agitations should be swept under the carpet or not.
Oh boy, I think there are several things because, if we elect our leaders to run certain things, shouldn't we expect that give them the benefit of the doubt, as it were? But wants and needs, does it even come up at this point in time? Because they use that a lot in business terms, separating our wants from our needs. But who knows? Since they cleared the ministerial nominee from an indigene of the FCT. So apparently from that, it doesn't suffice. They want to take one more step. And so when that then happens, you'll find out that it doesn't matter how he or she performs. So
as long as it's our own, Tiwa, Yorubas will say.
How long can we continue like that? Anyway, I guess that's it, right?
Yes, indeed, it is.
Okay, so that wraps it up with a look at the dailies here. But hey, of course, we love your views. Send them to us. We want to read them. So I might just go ahead and check just now. But we'll be back in a moment. Stay on with us.
I don't see him as a politician, and with respect to him, I don't see him as even competent to say what he has said. The fact that we are talking of palliative does not mean that we are not confronting the headlong of correcting the dysfunction and the imbalances in the economy. So we are both addressing the issue of palliative as a immediate step and addressing the fundamental problem that is affecting access to necessary resources to carry out infrastructure, to galvanize our economy, and to turn our economic run in a way that will have economic prosperity for the Nigerian people. So we are not limiting our project to issue of palliative. We have a four-year mandate, and by the grace of God, even before the next 1 year, people will start seeing the benefit of the fundamental adjustment that is being made in the economy of our country.
Well, as you can see, Dr. Adetokunbo Pierce joins us this morning. He is a member of the PDP National Presidential Campaign Council. He's also Lagos State Coordinator at ECOWAS Presidential Campaign Support Group. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Well, you clearly listened to that response by the National Secretary of the APC about, that conversation that started with Pastor Bakari's comment. But one of the main things that I can't take my eyes away from in that address is when he said, given the complexity of the Nigerian economy, Mr. President, we are not thoroughly convinced that your palliatives will be sufficient to cushion the effect of your policies on the Nigerian citizen. Do you agree with him?
Oh, totally. Palliatives, by definition, two definitions that I checked in the Webster Oxford Dictionary. One is treatment without a cure. The second one is providing excuse. That is what it means, kind of making it easy, take it easy. It doesn't solve anything. In fact, it's an insult on the intelligence of Nigerians. So you're providing palliatives as if we're a village, that call them to the village square, give them a pack of lunch box, and that's it. The palliative that the president suggested came to about 8,000 naira per person. And that's for 12 million people, I believe.
Which we understand is being reviewed.
Pardon?
Which we understand is being reviewed.
Yes, but 12 million people, a population of 200 million people, you can see that it doesn't go far, even in the numbers, the quantity. And the quality is even worse. 8,000, for how long? For how many people? So it's not a solution at all.
But then, it's a consequence of the fuel subsidy removal, which even your own candidate said he would have removed. And there is no way the palliatives, the fuel subsidy will be removed without an instant biting effect. So what do you think should have been done?
If Atiku Abubakar had won the election and insists on removing palliatives, he will not do it the way it was done, with in a cavalier manner, in a rush manner, without planning, without discussion. This is what happens when you don't negotiate, you don't plan, you don't interrogate people and so on. You just announce, and that's why we have the problem we have. So now he's running after trying to make amends for the mistake he made. Atiku would not have done it this way. He would have said on the day of his inauguration that this issue of subsidy has to be reviewed, and we are going to look into it in a way that will make it acceptable and not too uncomfortable for the people.
Isn't that what has been said since 1999?
Well,
that subsidy is a regime that needs to end, and everyone over the years has said, look, we need to do it. The question has always been that of the best time to do it. And
they have been removing subsidy gradually.
You think so?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Buhari removed subsidy. That's why the price of petrol went up. So every time the price of petrol goes up, it's because the subsidy is being reduced. So it had to be done gradually. And look, this issue of fuel subsidy removal, we've explained it. Many people have said so many things about it. It's a scam. Look, subsidy has to be implemented in various aspects of society: health, education, housing. This is what happens in a civilized society. So as we move along to become civilized, to become advanced, this is what we must look into. Subsidy, if you remove oil subsidy, is the worst thing you can do to your economy, because oil, petrol, is what fuels the economy. It affects every aspect of it, because the economy, the definition of economy is the process of production and distribution.
I'm a little confused.
How do you distribute?
Yeah. I'm a little confused with what you just said.
Yes.
So on the one hand, you said the subsidy regime is a scam. and now you are saying, it exists. Do you believe that the subsidy exists?
Well, now that when it existed, it was not subsidy. It was not the subsidy that affected. It didn't affect the people. It was the people who were receiving the subsidy that I'm calling a scam, because they were receiving monies, and it was not they were mismanaging the funds they took. So that is not the problem of the people. But what has happened now with the removal of the subsidy is that people are suffering.
That's the point. I mean, will the subsidy is it possible to remove that subsidy in a way that the people will not be directly affected? Seeing that the excuse was that we're putting this subsidy in so that the people do not suffer too much. And as you said, some people are benefiting from it directly.
If you remove subsidy, the way it has been done, what we are getting now is what we get. Costs of petrol that will make it impossible for the economy to grow. It will just shrink the economy, and we will get into a recession, because the economy is process of production and distribution. And you cannot produce if you cannot get to the point where you're going to produce. And if you produce and you cannot distribute, then you have a problem. How do you distribute if you cannot move? How do you even produce if you cannot get to the point of where you are going to go and produce? That is the problem.
I find this quite interesting about democracy. And I mean, some people can talk about democracy all they want, but it presents everyone the opportunity, when it is practiced the right way, everyone with the opportunity to come on board with ideas, let ideas battle. Sure. I mean, the majority will have their day, but the minority at least will have this say. And I just wonder, really, because you would expect that the president has much more information than the average Nigerian about the state of Nigeria's economy, how much is coming in, how much we're able to make, the projections and the rest. Ideally, the president should have that on his table. In fact, it should be on his wall, something he wakes up to every day, so at least he knows the issues that need to be tackled. But then you also have Nigerians coming up with alternative, propositions, or prepositions rather, that this is how it should be done. You didn't do it right. And you'd expect it, because now the average Nigerian's purchasing power, disposable income, has literally shrunk. But guess what? They say it will get even worse. So we need to, as much as possible, salvage the situation. So first, let me get you correctly. Are you saying that we should go back to the subsidy regime?
We should go back to reviewing what is happening in NNPCL. This whole issue has to do with corruption in that industry. Unless the president goes there, we will not really get the benefit of the oil that is produced in this country. This is the point. This is all it's about. It has nothing to do. You know, when people say subsidy, it's like something out of the blues. It is nothing. The question of the price of oil is what we're talking about. How do we get the price of oil to the point where it is affordable and we not destroy the economy? That is the issue. How do we do that? Go to NNPCL, Mr. President.
You haven't answered that question.
Find out what is going on there.
Do you think we should go back to the subsidy regime and then come to this agenda you're talking about?
No. You cannot be going back and forth. We need to solve this problem. And the only way you solve the problem, and the problem is this: the cost of pump oil is too expensive for our economy. Now, how do you bring the price of oil to the point where it is affordable? What do? Go to NNPCL and find out the wastage, the inefficiency, the corruption there. If you curb that, you will not have this problem. It will be reduced. Democracy is a job in progress. It's never complete. And you're right. The president doesn't know everything. I, frankly, have been very disappointed in Tinubu, very disappointed. I thought he understood economics. Now I realize he's just a bookkeeper.
How do you mean bookkeeper?
Because bookkeeper is an accountant. He's an accountant. He collects money, accounts for it, but to develop business, to develop the economy, takes a business mind. Somebody who has run industry before, employers, employees, understand the give and take in business. Evidently, he doesn't know it, and he's not listening to advice, because what is going on now is a disaster.
So when you say,
it's a disaster.
When you say that we should go back to the NNPC, how does going back to the NNPC affect the landing costs, of imported fuel and all other things that affect the oil price?
Part of that is what you find out when you go to NNPCL. You find that the landing cost is so low. The price that I've been giving, I have a brother who has been in the oil industry for about 30 years. And he told me, he said the landing cost is, at one point it was 50 naira per liter.
How many years ago is that?
Many years ago. Now it's about 150 per liter. Now they're saying that every specialist you talk to will tell you that the landing cost is less than 150 naira per liter.
Even now, today.
Today.
Where did you get that information from?
Listen, I just told you what I know.
Right.
And the way to solve a problem is go to the source. Let the president go and interrogate an NPCL, and then let us find out, announce to the country what the landing cost is, so that we know exactly what we can make, how much we can sell oil that will not cripple the economy. That's what we need to do.
Well, I know a lot of people will definitely come out with their own side of the story, government and people that practice in that area. But from what we know, and I mean, I'm glad you say you have someone there, you're not a practitioner, but what we know, of course, that a major factor in deciding the price of not just crude, but petrol is the value of the dollar. Crude is priced in dollars, naturally. We do not refine petrol in the country. So I find it quite interesting that you say NNPCL should be the one to at least sit up to ensure this is fixed. For Labour says, well, fix our refineries. Let us ensure that whatever it is we get out of our ground is refined here in Nigeria, so we don't take it out first, then bring it in, and then you have that extra cost. So aren't you proposing that as well? Don't you think that will naturally...
That's part of the issue. We have to do that also. All of it has to do, NNPCL is the department of the economy that handles the issue of oil. So the whole issue of, look, how many years have we been talking about refineries? It is so unbelievable that we don't know have refineries to refine our oil. By the way, one of the reasons why I say you got to go to NNPCL is this. Kyari said on this channel that even with the production of even when Dangote oil comes fully on board, that the price of pump fuel will not reduce. Even with the production of oil in Port Harcourt and elsewhere, the pump price will not reduce. That man needs to be investigated. So this is what we're saying, that there's so many things you have to do. Of course, if you refine your oil here, the man is already telling us that even when it's refined here, it's still not going to go down. And you are saying, you and I know that if we have our own refineries and we are refining the product here, the price should be more competitive.
Well, it's quite tricky. Even as at early this year, the landing cost, even late last year, the landing cost of petrol was said to be at 500 naira. That was the NNPCL as at last year, and this was reported early this year. I mean, it was within that region. So one can only imagine what it is right now, according to the figures that we have.
NNPC is falsifying information.
Oh, those are very huge allegations. And do you have proof?
Yes. NNPC. What about when Kyari says, even when Dangote oil is in full move, we're not going to have a reduction in price of oil? Doesn't that sound strange to you?
Well, I mean, he has the information, so I think you should present
You know,
counter
when you say
information.
he has information,
No, if you say
you
it is...
also said the president should know.
Doctor, if you say that
all
the
of
NNPC,
us are bringing our ideas forward. I believe that NNPC, from what I have seen so far, with the performance of NNPC and the utterances of the chairman, I don't believe anything that's coming from there.
So your belief is different
people who have
from
been in the industry.
Doctor, pardon me. Let me just put this in. Your belief
is
different from fact. I could believe that what you're saying is not true, but I need to have counterfact. So if you say that the NNPCL has been falsifying information, it's one thing to believe it. It's another thing to authoritatively say it. So do you have counterfact to that effect?
I believe people in the industry, marketers in the industry, people who have been working in Shell, in corn oil, so many companies for 30 years, telling me that this is what the cost of landing is. There have been many, many videos. Many people have said exactly what I'm saying now.
Okay, so what you have essentially secondary information, not fact at hand.
No, but what is fact? Am I working in NNPCL?
No, you said that authoritatively.
What do you mean by
that
fact?
the NNPCL is falsifying
That's
information.
what I'm saying, because
but you don't have fact to present to us.
This is what I have read. This is what I have seen. This is my analysis of the situation, based on what I have researched, what I have seen, what I have heard from so many people who are specialists, who have experience in the industry.
Okay. My colleague in Abuja wants to come into the conversation. Go ahead, Chamberlain.
Dr. Pierce, good morning. So could you tell us, what do you make of the government's plan to streamline taxes? Because, I mean, during the campaign, they had said that I think almost all the candidates mentioned a thing or two about taxes. But now, there are plans to streamline them to ensure that multiple taxation becomes history. They have a committee in place who have different timelines of what they want to achieve at all of those times. What's your impression of that?
To streamline taxes. Look, there are different taxes. There's the state tax, there's the federal tax. So I don't understand what they mean by streamlining taxes. You know, I really don't know. Look, all we need is efficiency and honesty in governance. There has been a lot of shortage in that area, and that is where the problem is. Whether you streamline the tax or you don't streamline the tax. By the way, I know that the president set up a task force on tax reform. Guess what? Who are you going to tax when the 30% of your people are unemployed, and another 50% of the people make less than 100,000 naira a year? Who are you going to tax? Where is the money going to come from? Also, industries are leaving Nigeria by the day because of high cost of production. So industries can be taxed, individuals can be taxed, or rather the tax you're getting from both sides will be so low that the economy will not make any significant progress.
What would you recommend then? Because I think they're trying to get recommendations and ensure that the right things are done. So what will your thoughts be such that if it's not done, then tomorrow people can say, look, there are very lofty ideas, but they were never implemented. So go ahead and tell us.
This economy has to be interrogated in a serious manner. One, corruption in the oil industry. You know, everybody is now talking about the French taking Niger's uranium, you know, basically for free. The French, the Canadians, the Americans, everybody is taking Nigerian oil virtually for free. This is what is going on. So you must stop the leakage in that area, and then you must do more. In the short term, the economy can be revived to a great extent if the president goes after all the agencies collecting revenue for the government that are supposed to be transferring the money to the federation account and are not doing it. FIRS, Ports Authority, so many of them, they are not doing it. It's all on record. I saw some document that Falana produced recently. It is unbelievable. Trillions of naira owe the federal government. That is one. Then, I told you before, there is ground rent for 20,000 houses built by the federal government. They are not collecting the tax. That runs into 6 trillion naira in the short run. In the long run, we must diversify the economy. We cannot continue to depend only on oil. The oil, we need to do more with oil by having our own refineries and so on. Then we need to, of course, no matter how many refineries you have, no matter how much oil you produce, if you don't police it properly and make people accountable that they don't continue to steal the oil, we're going to be where we are now. But let us say we produce our own oil. That is one way. But we also must do more than oil. We have lithium in this country. in Kaduna, in Kwara State, we have bauxite, we have bitumen. Ondo State axis, the third largest deposit of bitumen in the world. Enugu axis, the ninth largest deposit of natural gas in the world. So we must develop these minerals. And by doing so, one way to do that for sure is to allow the states to have access to their minerals and develop it, just like they have in the United States of America. Every state has something that they use that's indigenous to their states. Use it to develop the economy, pay tax to the federal government, and by doing so, instead of having one source of revenue, we have like 15 sources of revenue coming into the federal government. There is money in this country. Everybody knows that. Everybody in the world knows that this is a very rich country. Our problem is the cost of leadership.
So, Mr. Pierce, once again, good morning. I just want to know, because some of the plans which you are also, enumerating, we've seen most of those plans said over and over and over again, almost on a 4-cycle year basis. You find leaders speak about it when they talk about restructuring.
Yes.
So for you, for anyone who is very serious about restructuring the country, how long would you give them to do it if they get a chance in office?
If a person is serious about restructuring, this is the main reason why I was working with Atiku Abubakar. His plan was, day one, you must go to the National Assembly and ask for the Constitution to be reviewed in a way to allow all these minerals to be removed from the exclusive list, so that it becomes on the concurrent list and they can begin to work on it. If any president wants to improve the economy of this country, he must diversify, he must devolve power to the states. Restructuring is not negotiable for development of the country. Imagine if everybody in America, all these 50-something states, all go to Washington with cap in hand every month to collect revenue. Well, man, what are we doing? I think what you started off with today is very interesting. You would assume that the president would know, but usually, if you watch people when they are campaigning, they really don't say what they're not going to do. Tinubu never said he's going to do anything. He only said it is my turn. We were campaigning. We said restructuring, that is key. If you have a president who's serious about restructuring, then we are going to see an improvement in our economy.
So you don't think that
every state will improve.
You don't think that the document that his campaign released, the Renewed Hope agenda, you don't think it is something?
Pardon?
You don't think, when you said he didn't say he was going to do anything, well, how about the campaign, the document that they produced, the Renewed Hope document they produced? You don't think it's anything?
Look, the president, the individual, man or woman who is in charge, must be held accountable. You read their lips, you know where they're going. Forget about documents. Everybody produced documents. They have their manifesto. But what about Buhari? Didn't they have an APC manifesto that they're going to do restructuring? But Buhari said before the election, 2015, he said he didn't want to hear anything about restructuring. He said it. And that's when I knew that he's not going to pursue it.
Okay, but
Tinubu never said he's going to pursue it.
To be fair, I mean...
So I don't expect him to pursue it. But if he doesn't pursue it, right, I tell you this administration will not last.
Just quickly, to be fair, the president during campaigns had made those. In fact, Subsidy was one of them, and I think there are videos upon videos showing where he said Subsidy must go. He's made several promises. But yes, promises will be made naturally. Maybe because you were busy with campaigning with the PDP, of course, you will not be watching the APC's campaign. But those promises...
yeah, of course I watch the campaign. We all watch each other's campaign.
So those promises naturally is what we expect to be fulfilled.
He talked about removing subsidy, but nobody knew he would do it this way.
Right. So quickly speak to this point. So within your party, of course, there have been several issues, and it looks like maybe the PDP has been moving. I just want, by way of updates, you tell us what's going on within the PDP. Now that former Governor Wike has gotten an appointment, is all well and good now? Can the PDP finally move on from the crisis we saw in the past? Quickly.
Well, the acting national chairman has said that that we must basically go back to the drawing board, let bygones be bygone. If Wike is in APC, we assume it is under the umbrella of Government of National Unity.
But he said he will never join the APC.
If he's if he's in government, if he's got the ministerial position, it is under the umbrella of the National Unity Government. Therefore, it's all well and good. All we want is for people to serve this country honestly and diligently, and help the country to make progress. So
you think it's a good thing?
So it's look, all that's important is for people to be fully committed to helping this country develop. So the party is not fighting him because of that. He is not fighting the party. The fight is over after the election, and let us see what comes out of the tribunal. We'll take it from there. But right now, PDP is settled, and we are beginning to grow again, and we're working on it, and we are going to make progress.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Adetokunbo PS is a member PDP National Presidential Campaign Council. He's also Lagos State Coordinator at ECOWAS Presidential Campaign Support Group. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
We're back right after now. Do stay with us.
It's the second extraordinary session of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the ECOWAS taking place at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The focus of this meeting is the political situation in Niger Republic following the expiration of the 7-day ultimatum given for the return of democratic rule to Niger.
Excellency,
the chairperson of ECOWAS welcomes the members with an outline of the efforts by the bloc, including sanctions and mediation efforts that are yet to yield results. He advocates more diplomatic efforts and dialogue.
It is crucial that we prioritize diplomatic negotiations and dialogue as the bedrock of our approach. We did. And we still look to engage the party involved, including the coup leaders, in honest discussion to convince them to relinquish power as suggested.
The body then goes into a closed-door session to review the developments since its last meeting.
We have reaffirmed our commitment.
Hours later, the doors are thrown open and the chairperson gives his closing remarks. He reiterates that all options will be considered in ensuring a peaceful resolution of the situation in Niger.
No option is taken off the table, including the use of force as a last resort. If we don't do it, no one else will do it for us.
It is then time for the reading of the communique.
Uphold all measures and principles agreed upon by the extraordinary summit held on Niger on 30th July 2023. Underscore the determination of the ECOWAS authority to keep all options on the table for the peaceful resolution of the crisis. Enforce all measures, in particular border closures and strict travel bans and assets freeze, on all persons or groups of individuals whose actions hinder all peaceful efforts aimed at ensuring the smooth and complete restoration of constitutional order. Direct the Committee of the Chief of Defense Staff to activate the ECOWAS standby force with all its elements immediately. Order the deployment of the ECOWAS standby force to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger.
ECOWAS is urging the African Union to endorse their decisions while asking partner countries and institutions, including the United Nations, for support to ensure a quick resolution of constitutional order in Niger Republic. Some of the presidents who spoke later make clear their resolve on the matter.
ECOWAS cannot accept this. This is not a matter of Nigeria against Niger, not at all. The decision that we have made today, and I hope it will be implemented immediately, is a decision of ECOWAS. All the head of states think that we have tried dialogue with the push of Niger. I personally consider this as a terrorist act, and we cannot let this continue. We have to act. The position of Côte d'Ivoire, which has been endorsed by all of the head of states, is that we have been able to tell these putschists that their place is in the barracks.
But if we had made mistakes in the past, we should try to correct it now. There is always a time to get started. I think it was a mistake not to have taken action previously, but now that we are together on this, we should take action to make sure that it does not continue.
It's the end of the second extraordinary session on the political situation in the Republic of Niger, and it's now time to see if this set of resolutions will bring the much-needed stability and the return of democracy to that country. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
All right, welcome back. As you've seen there, His Excellency Joseph Ayologo, former permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, former Nigeria's ambassador in Switzerland. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, a lot has since happened ever since the last time we had you on the program. Yesterday, news came through that the junta was open to negotiating with ECOWAS and their delegation. But about an hour ago, there were reports that there was an announcement by the spokesperson of that junta that they were going to prosecute deposed leader Bazoum for high treason. So all of those coming in thick and fast. So tell us, let's start from that. Aren't they conflicting signals if you say, yes, you're ready to negotiate, and then you prosecute the deposed leader for high treason? How do people respond to this?
Good morning, Chamberlain. Well, it is conflicting, but again, perhaps they are listening to the ECOWAS heads again, because I've looked at the resolutions. They don't seem to be compromising enough. So I don't know. I'm just guessing that the coups are going on with their own agenda in a way, carrying out the usual processing of a coup. I think the ECOWAS should begin quickly to dissuade them from doing any of these activities or penalties against the government. I mean, the former. The ousted president, and just talk more about the future of the arrangements they have made to return to constitutionality. That is, election, what time, and all that, instead of talking more of having the standby force and all that, and some pressures that may seem to incite the coups to do more things that we don't want them to do.
At the same time, I mean, how do they do that successfully? Because part of what ECOWAS had demanded was reinstate the outside leader. And then if the group says, the junta says they want to negotiate, but part of the key decisions or demands for ECOWAS is reinstating. Now they say no, that they will prosecute him for high treason. So if they were to come to the table to negotiate, because in law they say, look, if we destroy the rest, so what's the point? So can we then say at this point in time that of course, it will be a difficult negotiation if they don't hold on and find out if they can have some sort of leverage, because it looks as though they're taking away the leverage for that negotiation, saying, look, this is the non-issue because we will do what we have to do. So come up with something else upon which we should negotiate, because even in some of the dailies today, they're saying they struck because Nigeria was going to be affected.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I agree that the two groups now, ECOWAS and the coups, are ranging out the options or their demands for in the process for a negotiation. One would go around. One insists that they would begin to punish the former president, and then the ECOWAS say they would want to make sure that the coups are brought to book, or rather to hand over government power to the ousted coup. But let's assume that we decide that, or ECOWAS decides, or both parties agree that, look, what we need now is to return to constitutionality. It doesn't have to be constitutionality that is return Bazoum to power, but return to constitutionality. I thought usually the trend is arrange for an election. He may be part of it, he may not be part of it, and set a timeline. That has always been the trend. If it's agreed this time, then that will reduce a lot of the tension that's brewing now.
Your response there has just fed right into my own question, sir. I was just going to ask you about if you have the example of any country where there's been a coup and a leader was returned to power. I mean, how was power managed thereafter if we've seen such a situation in the past?
Well, scanning my head, it's not quite easy to see where they repeat. Well, most of the coups we've been seeing, the person is ousted. It's either that there's a counter coup or there is an arrangement but definitely we haven't seen an arrangement where they hand over back power to the person who is ousted, especially in a case where there was a very strong reason, within themselves, why he was ousted, having to do with his alliances with the foreign power and the feeling that he was not protecting the interest of Niger as the Nigerians would have expected, and so on. So, I think that answers the question, but obviously for peace.
I was going to ask how then that feeds, because some people will say that perhaps one of the reasons why I'm not making any excuses for the coupists, but the question I'm trying to ask is how probable some of the requests, or will I say some of the demands that ECOWAS is making of the co-leaders, how probable they are when they say you have to return power back to Bazoum. I recall one of our analysts here in China was asking, that the number one question that ECOWAS hasn't answered is, if the former president is returned to power, who is going to protect him, considering that it was the chief of guards who staged this particular coup. So very big questions around that arena. But, what constitutional, arrangements now can be made to right this obvious wrong that has happened in Niger?
Well, constitutionality means election. You elect a new leader, or either that is it. And the past trend, like I said earlier, is that you discuss the program for returning to constitutionality, not necessarily returning power to the ousted government. Time frame,
ECOWAS will promise support for that return to constitutionality. That should be the emphasis of ECOWAS at this moment. But if it goes on if they go on insisting that it must be Bazoum, then I don't know what to expect from the coups. You can expect anything. Because assuming they were to carry out this threat of trying for high treason, of course they would find reasons that he's been treasonable, and then high treason attracts death sentence and all that, or long incarceration. That's not necessarily good, but that might be part of the line they would do. So for now, ECOWAS should not say, you've done a coup. We understand why you've done, why there has been a coup and all that. When do you return to constitutionality? And then that should be the point of negotiation at this moment.
Well, I'm also asking whether we're doing too much with regards to these negotiations. I mean, we've sent two different parties to the coup leaders for negotiations. On two occasions, some of the teams that were sent were rebuffed. We made some headway. We saw how the 14th Emir of Kano, went on a private visit to the, is it 14th or 11th? We saw, Emir Sanusi visit Niger Republic. He says of his own accord, but the president of Nigeria was aware. And when he came back, he went to brief the president. And then we've also seen a number of ulamas now visit the current Johnson leader in Niger Republic. Do you think that we're doing too much with regards to trying to make these negotiations happen?
Well, we're not doing too much. Nothing is too much to bring peace to our friendly neighbor across the northern border. So far, and the important thing that the efforts that have been made is working. At least from the point of all the former head of state and the Sultan of Sokoto with the wheat they carry went in. They weren't received, but I understand that the coups have now apologized for that act of what you could call insolence, but the subsequent visit have worked. So to answer, we're not doing too much. Nothing is too much to put in on this matter, because our president holds the chairmanship of ECOWAS, and Niger is our close neighbor, and anything that happens there matters to us. So that's the point.
Ambassador, I'm not sure I've quite understood what you said in response to Marquez's question about what's going to happen post-dialogue in Niger. Of course, the hope is that, there will be a return to democratic governance, and you're saying that it comes down to elections. So whether or not the president, who is now not on seat, is restored to power, that is one thing definitely that the ECOWAS is asking: restore democratic governance, restore the president. But post this conversation, in the event of a return to democracy, what do you recommend would happen to the power balance in the nation? What happens to the military? What happens with the Democrats in the country? How do we sustain democracy without the fear that there could be another takeover?
Well, we shouldn't worry too much about what happens. Well, we should really, but that's not the point now. The point is to get the coups to accept that there ought to be a return to constitutionality as soon as possible, so that they blend with the democratic expectations of ECOWAS and so on. And then once that happens, in an election that is free and fair, then the army would go back to their barracks and no problem. This is not the first time it's happened. Of course, if ECOWAS was to do what it should do, we should now be talking seriously about what led to this coup and what is leading to the various other coups, especially in the Francophone countries. Obviously, a lot has been said about their feeling of being repressed, now being recolonized by their French former colonial masters, and that is no longer sitting well down to them. And there is obviously, we list some of the countries as the most poor, while they have quite a lot of assets. So ECOWAS must start dealing with these matters. Why should certain things be happening and that are not in the interest of ECOWAS Francophone countries? Then they would ask that question, find the answers. If it requires making a very strong input in it, they do. That these are the things that will stop coups, not anything else. Good governance, development, will of the people, meeting expectation of the people is the key to solving the potentials of coups, possibilities of coups.
Okay. Well, Ambassador, you said the other time it's not the first time it's happening, most certainly. I mean, go back to 97, for instance, when there was a military takeover in Sierra Leone. It was Nigeria as well that took the lead in restoring the democratic governance at the time as well. Do you see any similarities between what happened in 1997 and what is happening now in Niger? I mean, the dynamics may be different. The irony is that the government of Nigeria at that time was led by the military, which opposed a military government in Sierra Leone and restored democratic governance. It's different this time around. So, but besides that, what are the similarities and lessons that you think we can learn from what happened in 97, and whichever one of them is or is not applicable to what's happening in Niger right now?
Well, Sierra Leone, at a point in Sierra Leone's problem, it was almost like a heavy internecine war between various groupings, killing themselves and all that. And well, Nigeria, as the big regional, sub-regional power, decided that it's not good in the interest of the region to have a sister country suffer, be put under those stress. So we did what we had to do, and it worked. The same thing also in Liberia. The situation got very bad before Nigeria intervened to bring peace. Nigeria is also intervening now, even though the situations have not gone so bad or bad at all. In essence, the only person suffering now would be just the president, the former president, and family members and people who are ousted. There has been no killing. In the streets, people are happy. And it's quite easier to resolve this time, in this particular case, without a full-blown war. Just a matter of getting the coups. Luckily, they have decided to negotiate and talk. So we must listen to what their problems are. We must listen to their plans. We must also keep an ear on the needs, the expectations of the people. Yeah, by the time we do that, a lot of things are coming out already. So it's easier to solve than that of Sierra Leone, that of Liberia, which became so bloody. I am still hopeful that ECOWAS will do the right thing now that the channels for discussions, diplomatic exchanges have opened. Let's not go to demand the the indefensible, I would say, or what is probably not feasible?
Well, negotiations are always very tricky and fluid, as they say. I mean, one moment you're requesting for something, of course, you know it's not feasible, but of course to have that sort of space to get something maybe acceptable at the end of the day. But having served at the very top of, diplomacy, if I could use that expression, I wonder how, foreign governments, intergovernmental organizations like the United Nations, how they respond to coups or military takeovers such as this one. Is there a protocol? Because there's that fear usually when coups happen, for example, in this region, which has been described as a coup belt, that there will naturally be foreign interference. So the battle is always being fought on different fronts. Within the nation itself, within the sub-region, perhaps a region as well, and then there's a battle between Africa and Western authorities or Western governments. Let's protect ourselves. So really, if you can give us an insight, what is usually the approach, the protocol to these sorts of issues?
Well, the UN is a mixed grill of all sorts of countries, some democratic, some not democratic, but the UN lives with all of them. The concern of the UN is to enhance peace and security. That's what the core mandate of the UN is. The trends for the past decades have been to allow the regional organizations, either the AU, and that had dropped down to EU, to try to vicariously deal with some of these challenges to peace and security. That's why, in effect, we're actually doing, ECOWAS is doing what the UN is supposed to be doing. But that's in order because it's not, that's the way it's arranged. Regional groups will try to sort out the problems. The UN doesn't approve coups or unconstitutional changes in government, but the UN is living with countries that made up of countries and living with the situation that countries are a mixed grill. Some are democratic, some are quasi-democratic, some are clean dictatorships. And life goes on. I think that at the end of the day, if it gets so much out of hand and there is need for war, there is the requirement that you will get approval of the UN. But of course, we know that so many countries, big countries, have gone to war against some others without even getting approval of the UN. In fact, with getting the disapproval of the UN.
Right.
So I think the important thing is what ECOWAS does in its sub-region on this matter. And the gates are still open for us to resolve this matter very, very amicably. And,
indeed, Ambassador. I just want to get your thoughts on this final issue, really. Worst case scenario, well, maybe from this side, the worst case scenario, but you can't tell what the sentiments are in the country itself. But worst case scenario, which a lot of people have said, and I mean, you've said that there should be a return to constitutionality, but there's been that question about what is constitutionality. I mean, Nigeria's constitution, for example, says, we the people. It presupposes there's that debate, of course, that it wasn't we the people, it was just some people. But there is that assumption that a constitution is a function of an agreement of the people, or at least majority of the people. So worst case scenario, if the people of Niger, I mean, we've seen some narratives out there saying, well, there's been jubilation and the rest. If the people say, well, this is how we want things to go, majority of them anyway, this is how we want things to go, how do you strike that balance, really, between what the people of Niger want and perhaps what the region wants? ECOWAS saying return to constitutionality, and the definition of constitutionality is, well, return power to where it came from, and then we can have some sort of election, as you said. How do we strike that balance between what the people of Niger want and perhaps what the region, sub-region, ECOWAS wants?
Well, we can argue a little bit on what
constitutionality in this case means, and what it would mean anyway is return power to a civilian government. Doesn't have to be a particular person. Return power to a civilian government, that military formations are not constitutional. Most constitutions say we the people, so it's not the we the military. Good. And that is expressed through an election. That's the constitutionality. So if they do an election and without problems, and it's free and fair and no problems after the elections, and a winner turns up, then that's return to constitutionality. I don't see any other thing in interpretation to it. So the issue is just get a timetable from the coups and get them to treat everybody with respect, with their human rights and all that. So that means don't harm the president and so on. And perhaps even let him be a contestant, even if he may even be discouraged from being a contestant, but assuming that he wants to still be. But at the end of the day, there will be an election and a government emerges, and this matter of whether you need to send an army to enforce constitutionality against people who don't want an army, which is also not constitutional, who don't want an invasion, I mean. So it's a simple matter, but it shouldn't be, we needn't complicate it too much. The field is open. Let's talk with the coups, find a time frame, agree with them, and let's monitor how they are doing it.
What are the issues that you would consider most delicate right now? On the one hand, it would seem like, given the welcome that the people give these coups, as it were, one wonders whether or not the people actually prefer them. Another issue to look at that is, what are the issues that are really on the line here? Trade relationships, diplomatic and economic relationships with Nigeria seem to be on the line in the meantime, particularly because Nigeria shares borders with Niger. So which of these issues, listed or not listed so far, would you consider the most delicate or sensitive on the table?
Well, it all depends on how the ball rolls. If there is a war, we have a problem of, refugees and IDPs streaming across the border. Our border will become more porous, and we let in probably people that we don't want to let into Nigeria. That would create more security problems for us. Of course, that would affect trade and interactions. It will also definitely affect the relations that we've had with a friendly country, because whichever way we see it, the invading army is an ECOWAS army that is headed by Nigeria, both because the political head of ECOWAS is now a Nigerian, and because also that usually Nigeria brings in the bigger number of troops, so where our troops will be more visible. And we already know that the cost of deploying an army across the border will add more to our economy that is, that's already stretched. And in fact, the army is even stretched itself in numbers. And so there are so many implications. There are so many reasons why we, Nigeria, would not want any war. And not even just Nigeria, the whole of the ECOWAS region don't need a war. What ECOWAS needs to do is to live to its name, Economic Community of West African States. We talk of the economic issues, talk of integration, talk of trade, talk of communication, talk of currency. These are the things that bring development, and with development comes peace. And that's just what we need in our region just as the other world regions, the EU are aiming for and almost getting what they want.
Well, we have to thank you so much, Your Excellency, Joseph Anyalogo, former permanent representative to the UN in Geneva. He's also former Nigerian ambassador to Switzerland. Thank you so much for your thoughts this morning, and hope to God that there is no war or that this situation doesn't degenerate any further. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain.
Okay. We're back right after now. Do stay with us.
All right, welcome back. Yes, Mr. Walter Olatunji joins us next. He's a water resources and hydrologist with Niger Basin Authority in Niamey. He joins us from there. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Now, maybe we should start by asking you, first of all, tell us, what is the mood right now in Niamey where you are?
Okay, thank you for having me, and I want to also appreciate the pleasure extended to hear to know what is exactly happening in Niamey. Presently, I can say that the situation is calm, and everyone is going on doing some legitimate duties. So the situation is calm here.
All right, so there's this talk about back here where first of all, they think that there's an agreement between Nigeria, Niamey over the dam, such that if power supply ceases, we'll be violating certain agreements of them not building dam, and as a result of that, they might go ahead if they're not as much that they are already. If they dam the dam there, then we will have a challenge there. So you are right there. So tell us, what can you say about all of this going on? Is there any such agreement not to dam the dam there such that it doesn't affect us, Nigeria, being at the downstream almost, a little above on the upstream?
Well, this is a very tough question. I think that should be maybe addressed to the high hierarchy in Nigeria, maybe the office of the president or the office of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But technically speaking, I can say that we have not seen those kind of agreements in Niger Basin Authority that Niger should not construct their own dam. And I can tell you, it is in a public domain that the government of Niger has embarked on their own dam since 2008. So I don't think, maybe I've not seen such documents, but I have not seen, I can say I've not seen such document. But I can confirm that the government of Niger is constructing their own dam since 2008.
Is it possible that they will go ahead and construct their dam without all those other 9 countries who have to do with Niger Basin Authority, without any one of them knowing or signing off on that, including Nigeria? Are you still there, Mr. Olatunji? Okay, I think his network is a bit frozen, so we'll see how we can reestablish that connection and ensure that we get him back.
I can hear you now.
Okay, go ahead. I did ask you, is it possible for Niger Republic to go ahead constructing their dam without any of those 9 countries who have to do with Niger Basin Authority knowing and signing off on it, including Nigeria?
No, it's not possible because the policy and the system of organizational framework at Niger Basin Authority, who is a custodian to manage the Niger River water resources and the associated ecosystem, make it mandatory for every members of the country that propose any hydraulic program or project on the coast of River Niger. So it's not possible that members' country will not be aware or approve such construction. So member countries are aware. They are aware of the construction.
In our own case now, who or what agency, because I think they say there's supposed to be a focal authority in all of those countries. In our own case, which agency will that be that might have known about this?
Yeah, in Nigeria, the focal structure is the Federal Ministry of Water Resources.
All right.
Yeah.
I do know that when my colleague Chamberlain asked you earlier, you know, how things were, you said everybody is going about their business as best they can. But I'd like to know, electricity is a very vital part of daily living now for many countries. So how has it been like since Nigeria cut power to Niger?
Yeah. Sincerely, it has been not easy because we are not used to the kind of the epileptic supply. But for someone like me coming from Nigeria, I don't see much difference. Just 3 hours on, 3 hours off. So we can just program your schedule and work in that line. For those working in the office, we have a generator that once the grid is disconnected, we put on the generator. So I can say that concerning me in Niamey that the impact is not too much. Yeah.
Now that's interesting. 3 hours on, 3. So they alternated every 3 hours throughout the day?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. But, you know, what conversations are people asking the government to dialogue with ECOWAS, you know, because I'm sure that they too are not used to this and they will wish that the situation could go back to normal. I mean, there certainly will be some disruptive elements, you know, as a result of that. Are you listening to conversations anywhere? Are citizens asking, you know, leaders to talk to ECOWAS perhaps?
Yeah, I'm just like you. Or don't let me say I'm like you because we are feeding from what you guys are putting in the media. So when we are sure that everything will be okay, we have that assurance that there will be necessary to send in military to resolve the issue. That is just what I think.
As a hydrologist, do you have any concerns about the current state of the River Niger? Do you have any fears about how, you know, that particular resource is being managed? And, you know, we know that that's a free resource that's been given to us by God. But do you have any concerns about, you know, how we're currently managing that particular resource?
Yeah. I can tell you that one of the function of Niger Basin Authority is to issue what we call flood warning or alerts and drought in some area that are experiencing low water level. And we have a system in Niger Basin Authority that make this possible. And we issue all these warnings forecast to members countries for impending disaster or kind of problem coming as a result of rainfall or maybe too much of a release of water from the dams. So we normally do this frequently, and I can say that members countries need to kind of put in more attention to all this warning and make a preparation to make life better for those living around those areas. It shouldn't be when the disaster happens.
Oh dear, it looks like we've lost him briefly now, but we're just about getting to the very interesting part. So don't forget that we're currently in the peak of the rain. Maybe we've not gotten to the peak yet, but at least we're right smack in the middle of the rainy season. At the beginning of the program, I did tell you that it was rains throughout the weekend here in Abuja, and we also saw how the floods wreaked havoc on many farmlands in parts of Nigeria last year. So you were making a point. I understand you can hear us now. You're making a point. We saw how, floodwaters wreaked havoc in many parts of Nigeria last year, all of them flowing from the River Niger. Well, the Benue, we have a deal with the Cameroonian government and the Lagdo Dam they built right there. But you were speaking about concerns and flood warnings. So are you saying that in the past, these flood warnings have been neglected to the detriment of citizens?
Okay, well, I won't specify that there is a neglection, but I can see, what I can say is that maybe we need to do more in terms of planning, in terms of resources to make sure people are secured. For example, people living in the floodplain area, they can have alternative space to move to even before the occurrence of the flood. So it's like we need to have a specific arrangement for these issues. We are living with it, and we have to accept that fact that we're going to be living with this situation. And what are the measures to reduce the impacts or to reduce the negative impact on the people in those areas? So those are the things I'm talking about. There should be a specific or dedicated arrangement from the side of the government for people to move to a safe area even before the flood happens.
So
we need to...
Sorry to jump in there. We've seen images of the deposed president visiting the dam upon its construction, several activities that went on during the construction, which, by the way, is still ongoing. So could you then tell us, this dam that is being constructed in Niamey, what impact is it likely to have on Nigeria?
Well, that is a very good question, and it has been a very strong debate between Nigeria and Niger, and I can say from the studies that has been done, when the idea of this dam came in with the feasibility studies, we have that report that about 10% reduction of flow will happen in the downstream, that is Nigeria. When I'm talking about the downstream, I'm talking about the inflow of water from Niger. The water flow from Guinea to Mali, from Mali to Niger, from Niger to Nigeria, and from Nigeria to Atlantic Ocean. So that is the flow of the River Niger. So if you have a country a little bit upstream, we normally have that kind of notion that it's not good for the upstream to have a barrage, to have a dam, because it will disturb the flow of water and also the natural environment. But if you have a very good studies that look at the total water that is going to be abstracted and look at the current use of water the downstream, if there won't be much impact, definitely the project can go ahead. So what we have earlier, as far back as early 2000, is that there will be 10% reduction in flow to Kanji and Jeba Dam. But of recent, another study was carried out that says that it will be just 2.3%, which is minimal. So we are expecting a reduction in flow, but it will not have impact on our production capacity in Kanji and Jeba.
So was there ever any time where the conversation came up that Niger should actually construct the dam and that it will benefit Nigeria, thereby probably we also stop the electricity supply and divert it to the country for our own, perhaps, benefit?
Yeah, I can. The way you had it, I also hear it that something like that happened. When you have a conversation and it's not a kind of written down for people to see, or maybe it is somewhere written that is kept exclusive for a particular hierarchy. So for our own level, I have not seen such a documented agreement, but verbally we are behind that. So I can say that even if that is the agreement, in 2000, 2008, Niger commenced their dam. And even before then, early 90s, they have started the issue of looking for source of funding. So if that arrangement was in place, and Niger started as early as late 2000 or early 2000 to construct their dam. So what are we talking about?
Well,
I don't think you understand what I said.
Yes, yeah. At the moment, Niger owes Nigeria a lot of money for electricity supply. But at the end of the day, just hypothesis now, if Nigeria were to restore the power supply to Niger Republic, what impact is it going to have, given that this dam is ongoing? When it's over and done with, will there still be a need for Nigeria to keep supplying electricity to Niger from your perspective? What do you think?
Okay, I will say this from my own understanding, that earlier on, Nigeria should have supported and encouraged Niger to have their own dam, instead of maybe having a verbal agreement that we are going to have the dam downstream, you don't construct, we give you the light when we finish. And when we finish, truly, we give them the light. But afterward, we are supposed to think outside the box. That can we sustain this? Because we have a population that is growing in Nigeria. We have people that are working more dependent on the power supply. So I can say that this is what we're supposed to have done long time ago, to have encouraged and support Nigeria to have this dam. That is one. Then number two now, if light is restored fully back to Nigeria, it's going to be as normal as the way we are before. So I don't see any impact on the side of Niger, rather than Nigeria, that is not having enough power supply as when due. So Niger will continue to have their 24 hours power supply until they finish their own dam, and afterward they can tell Nigeria, thank you for what you have done. We have our own dam and we can generate our power supply.
All right, Mr. Walter Olatunji, hydrologist with Niger Basin Authority in Niamey. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some feedback that came through from you. This one comes from Abiro Kenneth. It is an email, and he's talking about the Nigerian coup. Sometimes if you don't look well, you think it's Nigeria. Mm-hmm. While I support the calls for the return to democracy in the Republic of Niger, I have a question. And that is, when will the allegations made by the coup plotters about the exploitation of the country's mineral resources, such as uranium, by foreign nationals be discussed? The country is rich, the people are poor. Enough of that.
Well, you also see this tweet here from Politica Dasiham. Says, I'm beginning to think about this fuel subsidy now. How much is the landing cost of petrol per litre in Naira? NNPC should come out and tell us the truth.
You didn't think about it before, Politica?
But that's a very interesting request, because it is a shareholder. If it's a Nigerian, it's a shareholder in the NNPC Limited. So it behoves on the company to give out those details. But this tweet from Olagunjo Oladile talks about, well, the economic policies, and it says, given the substantial time required to transition our economic systems, if our current trajectory does not align with rapid growth, it will become difficult to effectively address forthcoming challenges. We need to focus on accelerating our economic growth.
Perhaps speaking in the same sense, Matthew Osai says the huge corruption in the oil industry is fighting against the Naira. It's an interesting way to look at it. The federal government should turn attention towards fixing the refineries and probing the billions of dollars that have been spent on the refineries. If we produce oil locally, the Naira will appreciate and the price of petrol will surely go down.
Did I hear an amen to that?
And I say amen indeed. And that's the show today. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. Welcome to a new week, August 10. Is that August 10? No, that's August 14. Amaya Makinde, good morning and welcome.
Well, we have a lot of things to grapple with in this nation. We should fight corruption, fight bad leadership, but never fight ourselves, all right? I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Well, thank you for watching. Have a great week. I'm Malkwe Yusuf.
And I am Chamberlain Uso. Goodbye.